You're listening to the Imposter Roster, the secret lives of capable women. I'm your host, Christine Chubenko. You know that voice in your head, the one that whispers, "How did I get here?" Like at any moment, someone's going to tap you on the shoulder and say, "Oops, we meant someone else." That's exactly what we talk about here. Each episode, we sit down with a high achiever who's questioned whether they deserved to be there and then tell us how they rose anyway. So let's get into it. Hello, and welcome to the Imposter Roster. Most people pick a lane, technology or storytelling, but Michelle Collins decided the interesting stuff happens in the merge. Michelle is the Chief Operating Officer at CodeBaby, where she leads the company's work in conversational AI and digital humans across healthcare, education, customer service, and hospitality. She joined in 2018 and has helped guide CodeBaby's evolution from scripted chatbot experiences into real-time, emotionally responsive avatars, which, if you think about it, is basically the arc from puppet to person. Her path here is anything but straight. She started in journalism, edited the Daily Illini, interned at New York Times Digital, and reported for the Pulitzer Prize-winning Gateway to Gridlock series at the Chicago Tribune. From there, she spent a decade plus in marketing technology before landing at the intersection of AI and human connection. Michelle writes about ethical AI and what it actually takes to make automation feel like someone's listening. Fellow imposters and certified badasses, please welcome Michelle Collins. She's here. I am very, very happy that you have joined me, Michelle. And full disclosure, I know Michelle. And I have worked with Michelle, and that's why I want to talk to Michelle, because you will enjoy listening to her as well. You will really enjoy this experience because, honestly, Michelle, I've known you a while, have I not?
You have? Yeah, we've known each other for several years now.
Yeah. How did I not know you wrote something for a Pulitzer Prize-winning series? How did I not know that?
I think it's just one of those things, I was a contributor on it. There were probably, 50, 100 people that worked on the series. And you don't want to walk around with maybe feeling like you're stealing valor. But I did get the email from the group and everything saying I it. So, yeah, no, it's one of those things. Plus, it feels like it was a lifetime ago. But yeah, it was a really, really cool experience.
Well, you do know that if I had anything to do with launching a rocket into space, everyone on this planet would know about it. So I just think that's really super cool.
Well, thank you. Thanks.
And so when you were a little girl, what was it that you initially wanted to do?
I think I had two different thoughts of what I wanted to do. I think I wanted to be a lawyer, just because I really enjoyed logical things and logic puzzles and stuff like that. And then I kind of got bitten by the bug in high school. I was really fortunate. My high school had a pretty high-powered radio station for a high school and a good broadcasting program. So from my freshman year on, I took radio broadcasting and television production in high school and was bitten by the bug and thought I wanted a career in broadcast journalism. And then when I went to college, my next door neighbor in the dorms, her former roommate was an editor at the newspaper, and they were doing kind of a 1-day, 2-day kind of walk-in open house. And I said, well, let's give this a try, and just kind of fell in love with it from there.
So, I mean, you've got quite the vocabulary and quite the imagination and definitely a way with words. So this does not surprise me. But I'm curious then, somehow you found your way into conversational AI, which, I mean, I guess that makes sense. If you think about it, storytelling and then conversational AI, which, I know a little something about.
A little bit.
Just a bit. How did you find yourself in that, though?
So I think, and I'm so I've got so much gratitude. I feel like I've been at the right place at the right time several times in my life. So, as you mentioned, the Daily Illini, I did my undergrad and grad school at the University of Illinois in Urbana-Champaign. While I was there, a little thing called the Mosaic browser came out. We would be in the I was a poli-sci major for undergrad, and we would be in the lab in Lincoln Hall, and there would be signs on there saying, hey, click around on this cool new thing and let us know, give us some feedback. And as it turned out, the students were sort of the beta testing lab for the very first web browser. So, having that experience and then, having kind of fellow nerd friends that are like, well, this is how we would create a web page and this is, learning HTML. That was sort of a fun kind of new thing to learn, foray into something new. So I was editor in chief my senior year, and then I stuck around for a year for grad school for journalism. And during that year, I took the paper print version and created the first online version of it. So that was sort of the first time that I was lucky there. That helped me kind of open some doors with digital journalism. So the internship at the New York Times, working, ultimately becoming multimedia editor for the Tribune. And then at the Tribune, also having the opportunity to help out with some database-based reporting back before a lot of people were doing that sort of thing. So just really having a lot of exposure to tech all along the way, whether it was multimedia or, HTML right from the beginning, learning how to do different digitization. And so I parlayed that when I decided to make the jump from journalism and got a job as a business analyst, or freelanced and then a job as a business analyst. So essentially interviewing clients, interviewing stakeholders, taking my writing skills, my interviewing skills, and being able to essentially take all the ingredients and make some soup and functional specs as they were. And the more and more that I worked on these things, worked with the tech team, I've always had a natural curiosity for just about everything. And I figured I could best advise and answer client questions and put together specs if I learned more and more about the underlying structure of the technology. So I was really fortunate there again to work with actually several really brilliant women who were in our tech team, who were very open-minded and saying, yeah, this is how you would do this. And, you've got a little bit of tech background. I'd had some Linux admin experience, so I knew my way around the system a little bit. That was sort of a benefit of growing up in the U of I. Everybody had to access their email that first year or for multiple years via Unix shell the command line. So just always felt really comfortable in that whole world and learn more and more. So one of the things that was natural to learn a lot more about was the database side of things. And then just as needs grew, some coding here and there. I would never consider myself a full developer, but I know enough to be dangerous, and AI tools now are making me quite dangerous. So
Oh, they are. They actually are. And I have to, I got to let you people know out there. She has built some incredible things. Yes, it's with the help of Claude and various tools. But here's the thing. Michelle is so good at taking these various pieces and figuring out how do I make these things work together. And also, more importantly, correct me if I'm wrong, it's the whole, like the emotional quotient portion of, avatars, AI in general, and that means a lot to you. So, having that technical background that you have, and you pair it with your passion for finding a way for us to work with AI, and and more importantly, how AI actually aids us as humans, is what makes you so unique in your how you got to where you were, and the framework that you probably didn't realize you were creating at the time that you were creating it. Yes?
yeah, I mean, and I didn't. And, it kind of brings me to the second really good, right place at the right time to be at this intersection where, conversational AI, especially in large language models, since their very first days, I've had the opportunity to be right up front, front seat for all of that. And that's the perfect blending of everything that I'd had, the technological aspect, the communication aspect, the really where I consider my strengths to be. And I think this is comes from the journalism background is being able to ask the right questions, really understand what the meaning behind those questions are, if anybody asks me, or the meaning behind the responses, and then turn that into something that communicates that well and appropriately. So for journalism, it was talking to, the subjects of articles that I would be working with, and being able to, really make their voice and their joie de vivre come through in what I was writing. But in this world of, large language models or AI in general, that prompting of figuring out like how do I anticipate where I kind of think that this is going to go, ask the right questions to get it to go there, but truly listen to the answers and be flexible enough to know what's that next question. Um, and it's really funny, and this kind of might be an aside, but I just sort of have gone about my interactions with AI from that lens, thinking that's how everybody did it. So one of the ways when I'm working on a project is I will say, well, what's the end goal I want this to be? What's the function? What do I want it to do for people? What do I want it to evoke in people? And then really formatting or formulating what it's doing around that kind of end, more nebulous goal. And when I talked to Tyler, our CTO, he said, no, what he ends up doing is going through and telling Claude, well, these are the tools that we have. And this is sort of the general ends, but this is how I want you to do this. So I think it's just a really interesting thing coming from somebody who's purely a technologist to coming from my perspective, where it's the end product and storytelling and what it's solving and what it accomplishes and how it makes you feel while it's accomplishing it, that there's two very different ways of going about this whole practice.
As a software engineer and more specifically conversation engineer, I definitely go Tyler's route. But I really like your approach, and that's what I mean. There's so many things that when I do talk to you, you just I don't want to say a novel approach, but it is a novel approach. Um, I want to say that your perception is different, but in a way that I could say, ooh, I can use that. And it actually enhances how I do what I do.
I think for me too, and I've always considered myself a very, very technical non-techie, if
Yeah.
that makes sense.
Yeah.
And I'm not going to downplay what I do know, but I also know what I don't do, what I can't do, that there are people much more qualified than I. And that's been a running theme kind of throughout my career is I want to surround myself with people who know the things that I don't know better than I do. I think there's two different ways of approaching this, right? Some people surround themselves with people who are yes people who just let you kind of lead them around. And that's the very last thing I want to do. I want everybody around me to know things that I don't know. And I want to both challenge, but also know my place and, to kind of take my ego out of it. So if I do something wrong or if I mess something up, like that's a learning experience. That's an opportunity. But I think from that perspective, it's given me a way, an opportunity to, be able to go in and just do things kind of on my own and not ask forgiveness later kind of methodology, but
Right.
let's see if this works. And if it doesn't, okay, I'll admit it didn't work and I'm willing to change course.
That takes a lot of confidence too, though. Confidence to know that you don't know, and confidence to say, okay, I know I don't know. This isn't going to hurt anybody, so let me just give this a whirl.
Right.
Right.
Yeah. Maybe I waste a few tokens, but
But
it's,
it is what
yeah.
it is.
Yeah.
So, obviously, I'm going to ask you, there must be something in your various incarnations in this lifetime in which you might have felt like, I don't know if I should be here. I don't know if I can do this.
Yeah.
And I would think, in journalism, certainly in tech, in AI, there's the tech, the development stuff, but then there's the AI portion. So to me, there's a lot of avenues where you could have very potentially felt like, okay, I think I'm going to go in a different route because I don't know that I'm smart enough, good enough, whatever. Any stories for us?
I don't think there's been a single either career or new thing that I've learned in my life that I haven't taken on with both the combination of I don't belong here, but also I know I can figure this out. Um, and I think, and it's funny, I'll even go back because I was thinking about just this kind of thought, earlier today is if kids have the opportunity to learn a musical instrument, I think it's one of the best tools you can give them because learning a musical instrument for everybody but like savants is the most frustrating thing in the entire world when you start. You're making horrific sounds. If you're playing a wood instrument, you're likely getting really lightheaded. You know, maybe like I played the flute first and like maybe you can't even get it to make a sound at all. And you just sit there and you're just like, I am never going to learn this. And then you look and you're like, wait a second, I learned that and I got pretty good at that. And every time I've been in a situation where I feel completely overwhelmed by something new that I have to learn, thinking, oh God, I'm never going to learn this, I think back and it was like, you have before. And so every single thing I go into with that combination of just like, you don't belong here. You don't know anything about this. You know, you're going to, especially if it's in a more public forum, like you're going to have to bird dog your way through this. Um, and, you know, just then figuring out. So here's a perfect, I think a perfect example to your imposter syndrome. I was working at a previous job about 15 years ago. And we were really struggling. We had Volkswagen as a client of ours, and I was in charge of a project that did an online ad builder. We they had been frustrated with some of the just challenges with the technology, and they brought in somebody to the department who was brand new and had come from a consulting background, and was essentially like we were warned, like he's going to come in here and this we might lose our job at this. He's going to clean things up, and I was like, okay. So I was just like, well, what would I do in this situation? And I over planned and over engineered, and I put together probably like a 200-page spec document and process management document and everything that was just like, if this is going to come down to me to figure this out and to deliver this, I, at the very least, want there to be like, this is everything that's in my brain on paper, like the Bible for this. And this was before generative AI. So this was some work. And, you know, I had to fight some people internally who were like, you're going to overwhelm them. This is too much. And so we didn't bring it into the meeting at first. And this guy is just calling us to the carpet. And I'm sitting there and I was like, can I just show you something really quickly? Cause he was like, how do we know that it's going to work this time? And what's different from last time? And I came in there and I went to my office and I got this giant book and I put it on the table and I was like, this is the blueprint that I've created. And the look on his face went from totally PO'd and frustrated with the situation to like, this, you get it. You get it. And the entire relationship on bringing that giant notebook thing, you know, the 3-ring binder, 3-inch 3-ring binder,
Yeah.
whatever, completely changed for the rest of the relationship with the client. And I think it was that whole thing of just like, oh, I'm going to be in here. I have even done the thing that I think is the way to go to protect us and to save this business and all of that. And everybody internally is telling me, no, no, no. And then just bucking all of that when this guy was irritated with us, leaving, not even telling everybody what I was going to do, going and getting this book and putting it in front of him. I think it was like I was an imposter until that moment that I was like, wait a second. I was on the right path here. Like I had the right things in mind. I should trust myself more in these situations and fight harder for that type of thing.
So I kind of want to break that down a little bit.
Yeah.
Because, for anyone listening, one of the questions they might ask is, how did you get to, or what thoughts? You kind of described what thoughts, but I don't know if we can make it even more granular, but how was it that you just said, if I'm going to have to stand behind this product, even getting to that point, a lot of times we are locked in fear. We don't even get there because we're like, immediately the wall of I'm an imposter goes up and you never even get to like, all right, if I'm going to have to defend myself, because we feel like I can't defend myself. I don't have the smarts to defend myself. How would you break that down? What if, I know it's been a while, but what might have gone through your mind when you decided I'm going to prepare for, like, I guess the worst?
So my thought was that at the very least, this was a really worthwhile exercise. That I think the problem was is I believed them. Like there were problems in the product. We weren't delivering everything that we could be delivering. And my management style is always more coach than it is micromanager. Um, but I feel like this had kind of gotten away from us somewhat. There were too many cooks in the kitchen. People were going to the dev team and asking for this or making this request. And we had some change requests, but there was just a lot of spaghetti happening, and not because of the amazing team that we had on development, but just the reality sometimes of, having a multi-tenant system. You're trying to serve all these different clients with all these different needs, that somehow nothing ever gets just stop for a second. Let's hold on. Let's figure this out. And so my thought is even if this doesn't end up being valuable for them and they walk away, we had other clients that were using it. And I knew it would be a valuable exercise for us to have all of this and to be able to kind of improve the core product that we had. And I wanted to bring that in there because, I knew enough about somebody who'd come from a consulting background to know that you can't give somebody who's a consultant too much documentation. And I wanted to have that. I wanted to bring it in. I wanted that to be the showcase from the outset of this meeting, and, got overridden. But I believed that my instinct was right on that. And so when what everybody else wanted to try wasn't working, I was like, well, we're going to lose this at this point. This meeting is going terribly. They don't trust us. Nothing they're hearing from us is changing that. And so it was sort of the Hail Mary to come in here and just like, here's the book. And it worked. But I think, there's something to be said, I guess, and to answer your question, for the strength you get when there's nothing left to lose. And recognizing that moment and being willing to take a risk in that moment instead of just hoping that you can be nice or that, people will be empathetic and maybe, make the nice decision. And it doesn't work that way in business. People are always trying to CYA, and everybody has somebody above and below them that's always kind of on their heels and checking what they do. And, if you screw up and it's on somebody else's reputation, they're not going to put themselves on the line. So it's recognizing when you've got nothing left to lose and then saying, I gotta take the shot here. I gotta trust my instinct and go with it. And again, if you miss the shot, well, you didn't have much chance of scoring anyway. So,
well, that's the thing, is even if you can see that this is going to probably go south if we don't change something, and the others don't see that,
yeah,
that's where some courage has to come up, where you say, well, you all don't see it, but I see it. And at the end of it, it does seem like what I'm hearing in here is, one part is when I guess we get that feeling. So even if you feel like an imposter and you get that feeling like, I know I can make a difference here, but you're afraid to speak up, one part of that is just taking a moment, just stopping for a minute, saying, okay, what do we actually have here? Just really being real.
I think to add to it, I'm extremely socially awkward. I mean, I feel like an imposter every time I walk into any social situation. Anything where I get introduced with a lot of flair. Thank you for the introduction.
You're welcome.
And that I think has led me to really try to study people's reactions and responses and try to figure out, like, on a very conscious level, like, what are they thinking? What's their next move? What would my next move be if I was in this situation? What would I say next? And I think that, and like really making the effort to read people, gives me often a good sense when things are about to go south. in a way that I feel like a lot of salespeople maybe who are eternally optimistic might be like, oh no, we just got to say the right thing here. We got to, and it's like, no, this is off the chains. Like they're not happy. This isn't landing. Like we have to change course. It's that bravery to change course and not just go with, you know what, maybe I made the same pitch 15 other times before and it worked. But this 16th time, if it's not working, I got to try something else. You got to be willing to scrap it and say, I would rather fail with my best effort than fail with my everyday effort.
Yeah, you really don't want to regret, because you know how many times I'm sure you've experienced this. It's like, I really think this is the problem, and you don't speak up, and some short time down the road, somebody else says, I really think that, and oh my God, that was the answer. Everybody's just, singing their praises, and you're like, I thought of it 3 weeks ago.
Right.
You know?
Or as a woman in tech, you said it 3 weeks ago and nobody listened to you.
Yeah.
And says it, and all of a sudden he's the genius. But yeah.
Oh, okay. That's a whole nother
That's a whole
episode.
other imposter syndrome situation.
Yeah. It's like, oh, I saw her hackles go up. Okay, I better stop talking about that.
Yeah. No,
Can't help
it's, yeah. No, it's, that is a whole other imposter syndrome though. And especially, so that's a common theme for me because, like I said, I'm a highly technical non-technologist, especially going into any kind of high tech situation where it's a mostly male audience is I know they're going to be scrutinizing every single thing about my credentials as it is. I'll be lucky if they don't ask me some gotcha question about code or something. This certainly doesn't happen with the team that I work with now, but I've had it happen many, many, many times in the past. So that imposter syndrome is just there immediately. And so that's why I'm just like, this is my role. This is my lane. I happily swerve sometimes, but I know what I don't know. And, I think knowing what you don't know and knowing how to listen and learn is one of the most important things to kind of use that imposter syndrome to your benefit of, yeah, maybe I am over my skis a little bit here, but that's okay. This is a learning opportunity. I just need to make sure that I'm representing myself appropriately so I don't get called out in a negative way.
Well, and you know how to use your resources anyway. So if you don't know something, you're very good at, information seeking. But I'll tell you, with respect to people wanting to, given that you're saying you're very technical while being non-technical, that's why I'm always blown away when I hear about various projects on which you're working. I'm like, what? I mean, what? So it's very impressive. But as you know, I've been in software my entire life, and I still feel that, even with degrees and what I do now. I mean, like the AI, and I still feel that because, yes, you are not wrong. People will test you. And I, I'm not quite sure why we're like this, but, technical people, I said, really? Well, do you know how to? It's like, no, because that's not what I'm supposed to be doing right now.
And I get it. Like I get gatekeeping when you've put in a lot of effort
Yeah.
to learn something. It's especially frustrating if, and I know it's got to be really frustrating right now. In fact, to have this conversation for a lot of developers to see what's happening with AI right now.
Yeah.
And I think there's two very distinct camps.
Yeah.
There's the camp that is saying, I bring value to this. You can't replace me. And there's the camp that's saying the coding part was the most rote, like
Yes.
time-consuming, repetitive part of my job. The part of my job I love the most is inventing and figuring out
Yes.
systems and solving problems. And the code part was just the technical nitty-gritty thing that was in my toolbox. And so, thankfully, most of the folks that I work with in tech have taken the latter position and are really excited to embrace the tools and have been really happy to have me embrace the tools that I can to be able to output product. And I mean, and it's a testament to just how incredible some of these tools are now, like Claude Code and some of the models, whether it's Opus or now Fable, and the level at which they're able to produce code and test it and create their own unit tests and deliver things that are stunning. that would take the most, seasoned developers months and months and months is, it could be a 2 or 3 day project now.
Well, that's the thing. I am a seasoned developer, and you're the one who will say, "Hey, did you know that Mythos can do blah 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 or Fable?" And it's like, no, should I?
Well, and
Yeah, that's what it's so.
Well, and
I
that's the
love
thing is
that.
because I always have to be looking for other tools, right? Like in my toolbox is not mastery of JavaScript, or I do have somewhat of a mastery of SQL. So I'll be honest about that. Like I'm comfortable with my knowledge of SQL, but of most programming languages or Python, like none of those are in my toolbox. So I have to rely on other tools for that. And that's where the coding tools are coming in. I know I'm fairly competent at Linux admin, but when it comes to sed or awk or any kind of like scripting, I was like, yeah, I can do it, but like, why do I want to spend 45 minutes figuring out, a regular expression to get something where Claude can do this for me much more accurately in 15 seconds? So I think it's finding those tools and realizing, and it's also saying, like the tools that I do have, if it's SQL or, any of the DevOps types of stuff that I do know, I got better things to do than to do some of that stuff, to sit there and, reinstall, I don't know, the latest version of MySQL or, anything like that. Like I'd rather be working on things that are much more creative than just the busy work stuff. So I'm excited to have more tools in my toolkit that I can use. And I think that's why I'm always suggesting to you, like, Christine, try this. This is incredible. This is amazing. It's easy. You can do this. This is how you'll set it up. Here's how you can do it. Claude can help you set it up yourself. Like, I want everybody to have all those tools. Like, look, I'm a realist when it comes to AI, realizing that we need regulation. We have a huge, terrifying risk of there being bad actors who do horrible things or of this stuff all going amok. But I also truly believe that we are standing on technology here that has such potential to do so much good, whether it's finding cures for diseases
Yeah.
or helping to alleviate caregiver shortages or support, mental health care support services shortages, to help combat loneliness, to just, and to, cooking healthier or managing budget resources better. Like there are so many ways that this can be used for good
Yes.
that I'm just so excited about it. And it's interesting because my social media feeds that I follow are about 90% anti-AI. People so excited. I'm never going to use generative AI in my life. That's AI slop, this and that. And I get some of it. Like I understand and I agree with, like, look, we wanted AI to do our laundry and do the stuff we didn't want to do. We didn't want it to do the art and the creative stuff.
Yeah.
But I'm a big believer in it doing the busy work stuff so I can create. And I feel like AI has been an incredible tool to enable that type of creation. And it gives me a sense, though, when I'm talking to, and I'm sure you've run into them, the anti-AI people will hear none of it. It is, no, you're awful. You're ruining the world. You're dumping water into the ground. It's like, that's not how it works. And
Yeah.
every time I go into those situations to say, I think there are some things that you're slightly misinformed on. I don't blame you for having the ideas and thoughts and frustrations that you have. However, then I feel like an imposter because instantly they're all like, oh, well, you work in AI. Like you want to take everybody's jobs. And it's like, you know, fear is real. And the irony is I should feel less like an imposter than they should in that. But yeah, I don't want to say anything that's going to get myself in trouble because I think a lot of people's fear is coming from a well-meaning, earnest place. But I think a big part of the fear is coming from the fact that there are so many kind of oligarch type folks who are in seeming decision-making positions on all of this. But there's there are gaps in knowledge,
Mhm.
and the people who should feel like imposters don't, and the people who shouldn't feel like imposters in that field do, I feel like.
No, that's absolutely true. And I do want to point out, just like, one of the things about CodeBaby, ethical AI, there are ethic communities out there, ethics groups
Yeah.
that none of us, whether you're into AI or not, nobody wants to die a fiery death because of the robots. No one wants that. So there are definitely groups out there saying, yeah. See, I love AI. I also want to stay alive. So don't worry.
Yeah.
We're all looking into this stuff, right?
Well, and the other thing is too, is, the toothpaste is out of the tube.
Yeah.
And if the good guys don't keep up with the AI, if we're just like, no, I'm not touching this, I'm going to stand here on a moral ground that I'm not touching this, then it's just going to be the bad guys that are going to have it. And that's not the way we
That's
try
a
to
good
create a
point.
better world.
Gosh, that's a good point. So I'm curious, if you were to give a single piece of advice to someone who is battling some sort of fear, something that would make them feel less than in, well, work world or otherwise, I guess, what would you suggest to that person to help them get to another level within themselves so they can keep moving forward?
Fail more. Absolutely fail more. And if it's in private or with people
Yeah.
that you trust, push yourself enough so you're failing. I go back often when you and I were both trying to learn. So Chris and I were working on conversational AI, and Google had just released a product called Dialogflow CX. There was maybe 3 or 4 videos out there on how to use this thing. It was confusing. There were no tutorials on it. And I had sat there, God, for what felt like a week or two, just pounding my head against the wall, reading the limited documentation there was, trying things, it failing, trying things, it failing, before it finally started making sense. And then about a month or two after that, Christine, you started learning it, and you were like, I am never, ever going to
Yes.
learn this. I don't know who did this or who made this. I'm like, oh, I agree with you on that one there. Like,
Yeah.
whoa. And then you run into all these like roadblocks. Like, what do you mean I can't have just a general corpus that's accessible from any flow? Like, what are you talking about? I've got to repeat all of this. Anyway, we were about 6 months down that road before ChatGPT came out. So
Yeah.
thankfully, yeah.
Yeah. No, I just said, bye-bye.
Yeah. And it was, but it
Bye-bye.
was, we both went through that same thing. And I just said, just keep failing and I can help you through it. And both of us would just
You
sort
did.
of fail together and be like, well, that conversation was a whole disaster, and trying to figure out, and looking at it though. But failing for the sake of failing isn't what I'm saying. It's, 2 things. One, push yourself in directions
Yes.
that you didn't think that you would go, because
Yes.
you will learn there. But 2 is you have to be really, really introspective about what went wrong. Like, what did you fail at? It can't just be like, for us in that situation, it's sort of like, well, the product is just bad. The product was just not well documented. But it was like, well, what are we not figuring out? And I think it led us to learn a lot more about the nuances of building conversations, of what aren't we anticipating that people might ask, or what question is this particular flow or scenario begging here that we wouldn't have thought of. And putting yourself in a position to just do it. And don't be afraid of failure. Be excited about failure. Be introspective about what went wrong, is the best advice that I can give everybody. And do it over and over. I know there's the whole thing, doing, what is it? Like the definition of, I don't remember. I'm going to screw this.
The definition of going crazy or something.
Yeah, it's like doing the same thing 100 times and expecting a different result. Yeah, I'm not saying do the exact same thing over and over and over again,
Right.
but keep pushing and don't be afraid of failing, and don't sit there on the 3rd or 4th failure and be like, I'm never going to get this. Now, keep failing. You will fail your way to success.
Well, that's kind of like failure is not an option. Yeah, it is.
Yeah, it's a really good one sometimes.
Yeah, I totally agree. Well, I would have to say that given your experiences across the board and you having your own way to pull yourself up by your bootstraps, and especially at this stage of your life, this stage of your career, being part of a Pulitzer Prize winning team to boot.
It's a long time.
Even so, it is very safe to say that it's your time to step off that roster. So I think we should raise a glass to you, Michelle Collins.
Well, thank you.
And toast your brilliant, and I'd probably say dynamic, because this is how you are, dynamic exit off of the roster. I don't know how you're going, but it's going to be something technical probably, and we're all going to go, you can do that? Yeah, you can. So congratulations for bouncing yourself right off that roster.
Thank you very much. Much appreciated.
And thank you, everyone, for watching this particular or listening to this particular episode and hearing how some of our bright minds are working today. So thank you, Michelle, for taking time to talk to me. I know you have a jam-packed schedule, so thank you very much for making time to speak with all of us.
Yeah, thank you. This was a really great conversation. I really appreciated it.
It was fun. It was fun, because especially since I know you, and it's like, oh, this is the person you want to interview. So thank you so much for your time. And thank you to everyone who's listening for taking your time to listen to all of us talk about the reality of feeling less than, but then there's always a way out. So thank you, everyone. Bye-bye. That's a wrap on today's episode of the Imposter Roster. If something you heard today made you nod, laugh, or quietly think, ooh, that's me, share it with someone who needs it, because the more we talk about it, the less power it has. Follow or subscribe for free on Apple, Spotify, YouTube, or wherever you're listening. And if you're feeling generous, leave a review. It genuinely helps more people find their way here. Until next time, here's to finding your way off the roster, one honest conversation at a time.